How's it going, everybody? Doing a Resident Evil series overview ramble here tonight, like the Far Cry one. I do it for Assassin's Creed as well. I was about 10 or 11 minutes into this video before, but the cat got in the pan and it was way too distracting because she had to take a shit and she's scratching for fucking 10 minutes. And then she starts crying when she gets out. Anyway, I have, these Xbox One games here. I got the new school Resident Evil, kind of the side stuff with Revelations, and the remakes of 2 and 3. I also have 0 on the GameCube, but I'm not going to grab it. The first one came out in, 96 on the PlayStation. Revolutionary game for its time. Not that it was like the first horror game ever, but the first one I was introduced to personally was 2 on the N64. 2 is a lot like 1, and 3 as well, Code Veronica. Everybody knows Umbrella's bad, T-Virus, I think G-Virus, I don't know, there's like a bunch of them. It's expanded over time, and the stories go all over the place. There's a lot of characters. The main ones are like Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, Claire Redfield, Leon S. Kennedy. Those are the ones used the most. Now Ethan in 7 and 8. Barry Burton. Wesker is the bad guy. You don't really know it at first, but you find out very quickly. Brad Vickers. You got Carlos. From 3. Ashley, also in 4. Sheva from 5. Ada Wong. Wesker's kid pops up in 6. Moira. Burton. Barry Burton, I think I said that. Rebecca Chambers and Billy. I forget his last name too. William Birkin, Shelley Birkin. There's a hunk. There's tons of characters throughout all the series. You got the people in the new ones, the Four Lords. The Baker family, whatever, tons of characters. The game has evolved over time, obviously. This first one's kind of revolutionary. It's almost like point and clicky, but you obviously had full control. Everybody knows back then you didn't focus on the controls. As it moved along, the controls got more annoying. Those tank controls where you can't move and shoot, bad camera angles where you're like, no zombies coming, but you can't see it, so you just gotta fire blindly into that direction. That was always frustrating. 4 introduced the behind the back camera, but you still can move and shoot. That didn't come along till Revelations, I believe, on the 3DS, and then they ported it over. That was the first one I think you could move and shoot. Tons of side games, the Outbreak games on the PS2, Outbreak File 1 and 2, Dead Aim, both Revelations games, the Dark Side Chronicles, Umbrella Chronicles, the light gun shooters on the Wii. What other ones have there been? Did I say Dead Aim? There was Dead Aim. There's a lot of Resident Evil games, obviously. Over the years. I said my first one was 2, and I thought it was awesome. I thought 2 was a great game. It was cool. It looked great on the N64. The way those games are structured, the earlier ones especially, and they still have that kind of same structure now. You can't access rooms, of course, the video game shit where I need the diamond key or whatever to get through this wooden door, but I have a shotgun, whatever. But it was always like, oh shit, I found something new. I can access new areas. It was very always like, being surprised in the game with new areas. It was exciting, to be able to explore those new rooms. You'd have your map where you see what doors were locked and shit. For me, the game never creeped me out personally up until 7 and 8. I always loved the atmosphere of the other games, and they'd have some jump scares as well, but it never had like the dread kind of feel of a Fatal Frame or a Silent Hill or other games in the genre. You get a lot of those now, actually, on the PC and stuff. You get a lot of those kind of. I see them on Steam all the time. All those other like crazy kind of survival But they were fun, not necessarily long at all, but they were fun. And like I said, 4 turned it around. 4 is when they take it to Europe. Code Veronica's on like an island somewhere when you play as Claire. The first one's in the mansion in Raccoon City on the outskirts, and then 2 and 3 are in Raccoon City. They're like pretty much parallel. 0, which is chronologically the first game, came out in 03 on the GameCube. Although Resident Evil 8, here's some spoilers, and there'll be spoilers throughout. But Resident Evil 8 introduced like the person who knew Birkin, this woman who wanted to like bring her kid back. So you're taking it even further back then, story-wise at least. But those first games, though, they had the atmosphere down, but for me, they weren't overly creepy. Everybody's gonna get creeped out by different survival horror games, right? 7 and 8 to me were legitimately creepy. I was like, oh shit, sweating it when you're turning corners, and you're like, oh crap, who's gonna appear? Who's gonna chase me? Whatever. Just an overall sense of dread in those new ones, especially 7. Still an 8 in parts, but not as much. Of course, those earlier ones, you have the classic inventory management. You go to your safe room, you get the nice little safe room jingle, and you got to, what am I going to bring with me? Oh, wait, I didn't know I needed that key. I got to go back to the safe room, get the key. A lot of backtracking in these games. 4 introduced the case that you can upgrade from the guy, who I forget his name, if he had a name. It was like, what are you selling? What are you buying? And it got a lot easier with the inventory. That was more Tetris-y because you had to like turn things around in your case and stuff to free up space. But it was a lot more manageable for sure. 4 for me too was the game that kind of moved it more towards action at that point. It still had the survival horror elements. That's one that takes place in Europe. But it was getting actiony, and 5 in my opinion, and I love 5. I've played 5 multiple times. Like, I love the fucking shit out of that game, but that game to me is straight action horror. Like, there's no survival horror elements to me at all in that game. It's just straight action horror. It's not creepy in the slightest. Of course, the Resident Evil games, you get the crazy huge bosses and the weird crazy enemies, I forget what they called them in 4 and 5. 5 used Chris and Sheva. Sick though, 5 was a really awesome game. Like I said though, it moved away. 6 you could move and shoot because I believe that came out after Resident Evil Revelations. That game I didn't like too much. I didn't beat all the scenarios. I did Leon scenario, Ada Wong scenario. Wesker's kid had one in there. Chris Redfield, I believe, had one in there. I think there was a 5th person. But it was cool in parts, but it got frustrating constantly. It's one of those type games, like a Dante's Inferno game for me. But or Silent Hill Homecoming. I'm enjoying it. 15 minutes later, I'm getting pissed. Like every 15 minutes, it's just something that's pissing me off. And a lot of people didn't like 6. I didn't think it was terrible. It just had elements that were stupid. And then they moved to the... Actually, Revelations 2 is also pretty fucking creepy. Those are the side games of Revelations and Revelations 2. They use Barry and his kid and Claire and the young girl, I can't remember her name. And that one, Revelations 1, you're using Jill. I don't know if you use anybody else. You think you do. You're on a ship in that one for most of it. Cool games. And that had like the kind of like almost investigation kind of element too to it. The first Revelations, but always have the cool looking enemies, the Tyrant, Nemesis, the Licker, of course the dogs, regular zombies, and then it got crazy where those things are coming out of their head, Ouroboros or whatever they call them. They call the things something. The guy guys with the sledgehammers, the Silent Hill Pyramid Head type looking dudes, pop up later in the series as well. A wealth of enemies. 7 and 8 obviously introduced the first person. I don't know if Dead Aim was in first person, but I think that also was on a boat. I enjoy the first person, but I like how they're doing those, and you're getting the remakes of the original, so you're getting the best of both worlds, in my opinion. I'll talk about the remakes in a minute. I can't remember. I think inventory might have been a little bit of an issue in 7 and 8, but I feel like it was never a problem. I can't even remember. The Duke is in 8. He's like that dude. What do you sell him? What are you buying from for? That one's a little more open world-ish with 7 is kind of just straight going through stuff. The characters are always classic. I love me some Leon and Ada. Series as a whole, I do love. I think more in the broad, like overall, just because there's so many more of them. I prefer the Silent Hills, especially the first 4. I'll do a Silent Hill 1 too at some point, I think, because I love that series, especially the first 4. And I actually enjoyed Downpour Homecoming. I couldn't get into, and I liked Origins as well. I played a bit of Shattered Memories, and that was interesting. I think it's supposed to be a new one. Konami's working on a new one, I think. But overall, the series is great. You know, like it's evolved over time, which is good. And I like the remakes. I'll talk about the remakes here. 2 and 3, especially 2, was awesome. It was like, yes, this is what you want to see in a remake of a game, not a remaster with some up-res graphics. You just want to have full-blown remake. It was awesome. I think it was 4 that introduced not the raid, was it raid mode or like the mercenaries? That's what it was, the mercenaries, where it was like point system where you gotta get points and stuff. Yeah, a lot of cool mini games in Resident Evil 7 as DLC, but like the 21, which is like a Saw thing, and Jack's 55th birthday, which you gotta like get him food. It's the types of crazy weird shit. And the one when you're in the room and you gotta try to escape. There's raid mode and some of them as well, and this other shit too. And this obviously, I forgot about Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City, which was like a 4-on-4. You could play alone too. Maybe you couldn't. I do remember playing online on the 360. It was like Umbrella versus Stars type thing. It was okay. But there's a lot of Resident Evil lore, for sure. But I always especially the remakes, even 3. I said 2 is better than 3 in the remake department, because 3 is like 3 they changed the shit up to where it's almost like an action movie, but I did enjoy it. It's a lot shorter than 2. Although I'm replaying it again and breezing through it, trying to get some extra achievements, but I love what they did with these remakes, though. They look great. You can move and shoot, so that, yeah, like, it's the classic survival horror element feel. And they are both actually creepier as well. Especially 2. But like I said, I heard that they're making a 4 remake. I'd love to see a Code Veronica remake. A few of the games you can swap characters, like 0 and 5. 5 was 0. I'm sorry, is the one on the train. At first, you're on the train for a bit, and then you're in like a mansion-ish place. And I remember when the remake for the Cube came out. That was the first time I played the first one. I had played 2, and that was mind-blowing. Those games still look good, even the GameCube version still look great. That was mind-blowing. Once again, though, you can move and shoot, but those are fun games, man. I said a lot of those earlier ones are extremely short, but 4 started to add some actual length. Revelations, maybe not Revelations 2 for sure was broken up. I got it all on the same disc, but it was broken episodes. I don't think Revelations was the first one was like that because it was originally a 3DS game, right? And they ported it over. But there's some DS games too. There's Deadly Silence on the DS, which was, I think, another just reimagining of the first one with some added things. But overall, cool series. You know, it's campy and cheesy. You know, but there's tons of characters. The first one, you had the cheesy, like, actual live action shit. Really funny. But overall, it's a fantastic series. You really can't deny that. Like, from a creepiness factor, for me, in terms of, like, series of games, I'm putting Fatal Frame over it, Silent Hill over it. The two Condemned games are creepy as fuck. Even the Evil Within games, I'm playing the first Evil Within now. But the second one, they even have a creepier vibe. But like I said, 7's creepier, Revelations 2 is very creepy. But the atmosphere was always there. It's very much like the Dead Space games. I don't find them creepy, but the atmosphere is great. And the action's great. Dead Space is really good too. But it's just a great series for sure. And for me, I think you can get in at any point. Just because they're fun games. It's just, I don't know, there's something, especially I was noticing it when I was playing 3, even though it takes more of an action-y vibe. It was just fun finding the herbs and mixing herbs. That's what you're doing, you know, you're mixing herbs and stuff for health and shit. You're finding your first aid sprays and all that other crap, you know. You know, it was always fun to do that and find, oh, I found the new item, oh shit, you know. Very good. It was always good because you progressed. The progression was great. That's really what it is in those earlier games, because you would get stuff, you'd find stuff, and it'd be like, oh shit, you were like enticed to play more. Although earlier, back in the day when we played those earlier ones, the internet was there, but you didn't have a lot of like fucking online facts. So you got stuck in some of these instances and you were kind of fucked for a bit. You have to really figure it out. But, you know, for me, like if I was ranking them, I would probably, oh, sorry. It's tough. Maybe I'll do a video where I'll rank them. Like from all the ones I played enough of, because a few I haven't beaten, and some I haven't really played. Like I played some of one of the Outbreak games. It was cool, but that was more like a multiplayer thing if you had the network adapter for the PS2. But you could play alone. But it's in the same vein as the other ones. And those ones on the Wii were cool too, the Dark Side Chronicles and Prodigal Chronicles, because you go through like, you know, the games and you'd just be a light gun shooter. So the one was like, you'd be going through Zero and the original and shit, and you'd be like, oh shit, there's the snake, you know, and you're fighting this. It's pretty cool, actually. I like to pick those games up again at some point. I don't know how expensive they go for these days. But overall, you know, obviously it's a great series. They're still making them. And they're redefining them and improving and they're evolving, you know. And that's great, you know. And now they're doing the remakes. It's like awesome. You know, I'd love to see fucking Konami do that. Do me a fucking remake of 2 and 3, Silent Hill 2 and 3. But it's it is a great series. I know I'm kind of rambling all over the place about it, and I'm sure I've missed plenty of shit, but you know, Ethan's new character. There's a cool part. Spoilers here. In 8, towards the end, where you play as Chris, and you're like overpowered with a shit ton of ammunition and weapons. And 8 also introduced like the werewolf factor and shit. And there's not vampires in it, but there's something else that I forget her name, Lady Demestru or whatever. Her daughters are not actually vampires. mercenaries or whatever, or raid mode, whatever they call it. We're on a time limit. You gotta get more time by shooting things. You gotta get points, and it's fun. So this is the stuff. There's replayability in those games too, regardless, because maybe you want to beat your own time, or like 2, you can play as Leon and Claire, and they're different enough to where it's something new. And there was parts in those games where you could like block off doors and shit. 5 did a bit of that, I believe, and 4 actually might have as well. But overall, just really fun games, you know. Bug flying around in front of the camera. And I want to see a 4 remake. I want to see a Code Veronica remake, for that matter. I'd love to see a 0 remake, honestly, or even the original. Or just put those 2 out with moving and shooting, you know. In those games too, you get the oversized boss fights. In 5, there's that one that dude turns into the fucking giant thing when you're on the boat. There's the Wesker boss battle in 5, which is entertaining. You find giant snakes and fucking scorpion type things and all other types of weird shit over time. But very cool series for sure, and check it out. If you haven't checked any of them out, give them a go, because they have, even the remakes, there's like something nostalgic about them. Because I just love that kind of game. I love just finding items and, you know, just searching rooms for shit. That kind of stuff's fun. I'm trying to think of the rankings still, but you know, 4 would be high up there. Even 7 would be high up there for me too. If I was gonna do a top 5 Resident Evils, don't hold me to this, but 7 would be in my top 5. 5 would be in. 5 probably would. Like I said, it's pure action, but for some reason I love that game. I really like Revelations 2 a ton as well. The original remake was awesome. Code Veronica, I really fucking love too. God, I'd love to see a remake of that one. Yeah, it's probably Code Veronica, like 7, 4, maybe Revelations 2, and maybe the original remake of the original, just for like, I don't know how mind-blowing it was to see those graphics in the game. But yeah, that's just me babbling about the Resident Evil series. I know I missed plenty of shit, and but I'm just trying to kind of go in a little overview and just talking about my love of the series and how it's evolved and stuff like that. But yeah, thanks everybody for checking this out, and have a good night.